That's right, friends. You read that title right. Today, we're going to talk about the 3 heavy English first edition base set packs that I traded away. More importantly, those packs got opened. So today, we're going to get a really good idea of exactly how bad a decision I might have potentially made. But first, roll that intro. Hey Gengar Gang, what is going on? My name is Ryan, this is the Analytic Gengar, and welcome to another video. In today's video, friends, we talk about a trade that I recently made. I have been very excited to share the results of this particular trade with you guys, and in today's video, I finally get a chance to do so. Before I get started, let me go ahead and say that today's video is hopefully going to kick off a new type of video on the channel. I haven't necessarily decided, with what frequency these types of videos are going to come out, but basically they are going to be investment reviews. They are going to be financially driven Pokemon videos where I show you the real life dollar figure implications of some different types of things that I've done here in the hobby. Now, obviously, this is on the higher end of that spectrum, and that's totally understood. But I will also be doing some more down-to-earth, real-life examples where we take a look at things like breaking open a case of booster boxes. So that's a $600-ish investment, and we will get a chance to see what kind of financial implications something like that even has. But with that said and out of the way, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about this really interesting story that I wanted to share with you guys today. Now, as a little bit of context, in October of 2020, Pokemon was pretty poppin'. Everything was going well, money was flowing, things were getting purchased, and a little old Ryan decided it was a good idea to go on Facebook one night. And in one of the marketplaces, I actually saw a post from Genesis Collects, which is an Instagram account, by the way. You should go check him out. And he had 3 heavy first edition base set packs up for sale. And I messaged him because, again, at the time it seemed like a great idea. Pokemon was great, and frankly, I don't really have that much WotC stuff. Like, many people know on the channel, I'm not a big fan of it. There's no real physical attachment or emotional attachment I have to the stuff. But I did realize that there is a great potential there for growth in the future. And so I wanted something, and I thought, given Logan Paul's recent box break, that this was going to be an excellent investment opportunity for me. So I ended up messaging the seller. I ended up meeting up with him, buying the packs, and magically I was in a really good position because we worked a lot, and Genesis Collects, went out of his way to really kind of show me the history behind these packs. So it was really cool because I got first edition heavy base set packs, something I've never had before. And then on top of everything else, not only are these really like the blue chip holy grail of Pokemon card collecting, but it was a full art set, and I could trace the history of these packs back to the original box breaks they came from, which is also really important. So one of these packs, the Blastoise pack particularly, came from Dulce over on Instagram, and then 2 of the packs came from Wendell, who is a person on E4 who organizes box breaks. And so there was a pretty clean history, and everyone who came into contact with the packs was relatively reputable and didn't necessarily have bad feedback associated with their page, which again is always a great sign and something you want to look for when you're making an investment decision, especially one that costs as much as this one did. Now, as time went on, I was obviously the proud owner of these packs. I was obviously very happy. Of course, I had to go ahead and post up on Instagram, and one of the things that constantly got told to me was, yo, open them. And I will be very honest with you, I did not have it in me to open those packs. I would not, and I would never open those packs because I'm simply not built like that. Some of you guys are built different, and that's totally fine. It's not I. But what was interesting was over time, I began realizing that the sentiment around these packs began changing. So what I noticed is that there were a couple different things that got called into question every single time other people listed packs. Because of the Logan Paul box break that happened in 2020, a lot of people thought that these packs were going to be worth $20,000 plus unweighed or weighing light. And then that, in theory, meant that heavy packs were going to be worth more than that, probably upwards of $40,000. And Logan's prices became one of the major sticking points for a lot of people in the community, basically saying the price of a Logan Paul box break pack comes with certain intangible benefits that contribute to the price people are willing to pay. And that's something we've spoken about on this channel. Tons of you all have left really amazing comments about how the cost of advertising can really be a major driver there. And, by and far, I think the majority of the community agrees that that's really one of the things. But the problem is that aside from Logan Paul's box breaks, which it seems like everyone was basing decisions around, there really weren't many first edition base set heavy packs floating around on the market that were being sold transparently, where we could then base judgments off of and get a real firm indication of the worth of an individual heavy pack. So that became a major concern of mine, is that as time went on, I was really concerned about, if and how I may be able to even make a profit, or if I really made an investment that was going to lose me money. The next thing that I thought about was the illiquidity of the entire situation. Let's put it this way. Even if I sold these packs for $25,000 each, meaning in total I could make $75,000, there are very few people out there that can bankroll that type of purchase. It's not easy. You really either have to have just come into some major money, or something would have had to have happened to you that allows you to make that purchase. And there's an incrementally smaller amount of people that have that type of money just laying around willing to buy stuff. So it became a concern to me, because what if I needed this money for a different project, or what if I just wanted some extra cash in my bank account? It's nice that I have these Pokemon cards and it's amazing the history behind them, but at the end of the day, it's also kind of concerning, because I don't necessarily know how or when I'll be able to liquidate this stuff, and it may cause some issues, because I may have things in my life going on where I need the money and I have Pokemon cards instead. Many of you know I always advocate for being proactive about taking care of yourself and then pursuing the hobby as a secondary objective. And that's just sound life advice, but I needed to follow that as well, right? I needed to practice what I preach, and I didn't necessarily know if I was going to get the opportunity to do that if I was going to sit here and have Pokemon cards and be missing out on quite a chunk of money from my own bank account. Finally, but not least, were questions regarding authenticity. Now, as a buyer, I had done a fair amount of due diligence. I had really gone out of my way to understand, see, and learn this stuff, and I was really comfortable with the authenticity. But, of course, every single time you post a pack with a weight attached to it and claim that it may be heavy, people are very quick to point out a couple different things. Now, when it comes to first edition base set, WotC was in a weird time, especially with Pokemon. They had a formula down for things like Magic, but for Pokemon specifically, bear in mind, this is the company that completely goofed on the Shadow and created 3 variants. First edition Shadowless, and then the Unlimited, which also had a Shadow. So, to be kind, they really didn't have a proper formula or standard procedure down for this stuff, just as of when these cards were getting printed. What's significant about that is that, unfortunately, that meant that there were some pretty severe variations in the type of ink, the weight of the ink, the weight of the cardboard, the amount of air that got trapped in packs, and a variety of other options that could theoretically skew weights. So it's not uncommon to see first edition heavy packs that are actually under 21 grams or above 21 grams but have no hollow in them. the best way and the most certain way of understanding whether or not something is heavy is comparing it to the other 24 quote-unquote light packs in the particular booster box. And that is very, very relevant for vintage items specifically. So, you know, a lot of people were saying that because this stuff isn't very clearly documented, there's a chance that, you know, it could be dud pack, right? It could weigh heavy but not have the particular holographic card in it. And so when I considered all three of these, I decided in the back of my head, maybe it's a good idea that I move along from this, and maybe I can leverage my combination of negotiation skills, the current market, and just the general outlook on life in order to get a pretty sweet deal. So I then set about, you know, considering my options. I thought about maybe contacting Logan Paul and seeing if he was interested. I thought about contacting the Pokeju and G&Z, and then I honestly didn't really do anything. So I did a lot of thinking, but I didn't actually take a lot of action. But fortunately, one day, again, as most stories usually start, I ended up going on social media. This time it was Facebook again. And in one of the marketplaces, a person who was a stranger at the time, I now consider him a friend, ended up letting me know that he would have some stuff up for trade. And so I asked him, are you interested in heavy first edition packs? And he said, yeah. So we ended up speaking, we ended up discussing, we ended up going back and forth. I gotta say, I will say he's a great partner to trade with because he made the process entirely workable, and it was very, very positive an experience, I think, for both of us. I definitely do believe the feeling is mutual. And yeah, so we ended up doing the thing. We ended up linking up, trading, obviously following COVID safety protocols, social distancing, wearing masks, hand sanitizer for everyone. And we were able to get a look at what it is we were trading for. I'm now actually going to switch over to the tabletop where I'll actually walk you through each of the things that I got. So without further ado, let's swap over there and take a look at those.
Thanks, narrator Ryan. All right, so to briefly go over what it is we got in this trade, I will have to do a little bit of explaining. So long story short, the trade was pretty fair, and part of this is because in theory you can upsell the product that I was trading, right? So the idea is that I had these really cool heavy packs. I was kind of standing by them. You know, I was reassured by the person I bought them from that, you know, there was quite a bit of basically guarantee behind their authenticity. So I was then able to take that same guarantee of authenticity and extend it to my trading partner. And as a result of that, I really was able to sort of sell this as, you know, a good investment and a good move. And so I was then able to really kind of benefit from the trade on the back end as well. So with that said, let's get into the variety of things that I received in the trade. Now, the first thing is going to be somewhat familiar, and you should have already seen these. The only difference is that this is a full art set of shadowless base set packs. Now, these packs come from a box break that the person I traded with did. So they broke a shadowless box. They opened up packs. They weighed everything out. They opened up the hollows, and then they kept the lights. And lucky for me, I was able to basically get a full art set. So effectively, if I was pressed about having a art set of the original Pokemon card game, pack arts, I have basically just traded away. But in theory, I lost the first edition stamp, but at least I still have the original artworks as they were. Now, because this box was also opened, I know for a fact that there are shadowless packs in here, and so it's pretty cool because I think I'll have the ability to grade these sometime in the future when PSA isn't crazy. The one other thing I'll note is that these are short crimp. So these are short crimp shadowless packs. Obviously, short crimp is usually indicative of a shadowed box, but because these were opened and we know what box they came from, we can say with, again, a fair amount of certainty that it's, you know, trading card game down here, tradable game cards, which is another indicator of shadowless, and then, most important of all, even though they're missing the long crimp that typically would be indicative, they are in fact shadowless packs. So I think that actually makes them even more unique, because it's kind of confusing, but again, we know where they're from, we know they're shadowless. My long-term plan for these, market value is about like $3,000 for these as an art set, but I think what I might do is actually have these graded. I think a buddy of mine actually sold a full art set as PSA 10s for something in the range of like $10,000. So I think what's happening is, obviously there are a variety of situations at play, but as you know, Pokemon cards continue to get more and more expensive, first edition gets priced out, shadowless rises, and then when shadowless gets too expensive, which will sooner or later happen, you know, like unlimited is probably going to be the next big thing. But in the meantime, I think it would be super cool to get those graded, hold on to them for a little bit, and then at a certain point, if the price is right, maybe they can help get me one of my EX era boxes. And really, that's what it's all about for me as a collector. I, you know, sadly don't really have much of an emotional connection to that kind of stuff, but I do think if it can help me get to where I need to be at, it, you know, that would mean everything. Next up is a Japanese base set Venusaur. So what is cool about this very unfocused card, okay, here it is that these are the original base set cards from Japan. So as you can see, you know, it's the classic Japanese card, pocket monster card game. So this is like the OG. The other cool thing about this is that down here there should be a black star. So, you know, that should be indicative of the, you know, infamous rarity. And there isn't. So that's why this is a recognized error. It's called the no rarity error. And then it's the, you know, this is the original Pokemon card. So this is like from the original. This would basically be tantamount to the first edition base set. This is the base set of Japan, and then the no rarity is often referred to as the original starter Pokemon. So this is really cool. One of these goes for like $8,000. It's listed on eBay for that much. I don't necessarily know if it would actually sell for that much. This one is in particular busted in terms of centering. It got an 8 in centering, and as many of you know, I don't really deal much in BGS scores, but what I thought was cool about this was that it also has subgrades. So the surface got a 9, which is pretty high considering it's a vintage holographic card. You can get a little glimmer of the holographic right there. It's a really pretty card. And then, you know, the corners and the edges got 8 and an 8.5. So this is, I would believe, a strong 8 at least, which is nice. And then, you know, it's off center, but in the grand scheme of things, it's a nice starter Pokemon. And again, a solid chunk of change on the side that can definitely, you know, be sold sometime in the future. Stuff like that is always going to go up in value sort of perpetually. So at least there is a little bit of stability there. Next up, and here are the two big hitters. Here is a first edition base set PSA 10 Venusaur. So this is legit stuff, and I want to call out a few things about this card. But for anyone who's unaware, whenever you hear about first edition base set, there's usually a few cards that jump out right away, like the Chansey, like the Charizard, and the Venusaur and the Blastoise are the, you know, pretty much always in the top 5 pulls. You want to get the starter Pokemon, and then to get them as a PSA 10 is no easy feat either. As you can see, this starts with a 1, the cert number, which means this card was graded quite a while ago. But you can see that it has the PSA stamp, meaning this is a recently reslabbed card. The card itself is beautifully centered, and I've inspected this under a couple different types of light. There's very little to no print lining. On the back of the card, you'll see, and that's dust on my end, but you'll see, unlike some cards that were graded so long ago, this card is in really, really good shape. It shows its age because I do see a slight bend, but again, that's the holographic more so than anything. But other than that, pristine looking corners, very crispy. Usually with these older cert numbers, there was a chance that, you know, they were more lenient. It was super easy to get 10s. I've spoken with, you know, tons of folks who used to be in the game back then, and they said, like, you'd rip a first edition box, get the holos graded, throw away the rest of the cards, and then those 12 cards alone would make you a stupid amount of profit, and they almost always came back 10s. I can't say that that's where this card originated from. Perhaps this was like a genuine collector who wanted the card and genuinely did what they had to do to get the card, but a beautiful piece and something that I'm really happy to have in my collection and show off on the channel, even if it is sort of a temporary thing. Then, of course, it wouldn't be complete without a Blastoise, the same first edition base set gem mint 10. This card was graded a little bit even earlier than that card. In case anyone's curious, those numbers go in sequence. So in theory, right now we're up to the 5s, by the way. So the amount of Pokemon cards has risen by that many since. But you can see that this is a 1/6 and this is a 1/4. So this Blastoise was graded even before then. And get a load of that holographic. This is a gorgeous card. And again, centering, really, really spot on. You know, it's definitely stretching a little bit on this side versus this side, but I'm so happy with this card. And again, no print lines, no kind of burring. On the back side of the card, again, a really solid type of card. The one thing is down here, there is just the slightest little white dot. But again, PSA 10s are allowed to have a little something or the other. It's not the end of the world. And it's definitely something that PSA stands by, right? The main idea is that any PSA 10 should have really high quality eye appeal. So I guess back in the day, well, when this card was graded, it was given the seal of approval. And again, other than that one little thing, which, you know, I guess depending on the day, I could even argue might be a little bit of overage, you know, it's everything you want and more. And then again, just get a look at that holographic. Stupid good looking. The one other thing I will say before we switch back to the narration is these two cards have a really interesting story. Last year, Iconic Auctions held their auctions where Logic bought his Charizard. Get a load of this. A full PSA 10 set was put up for sale, right? So just imagine Charizard's right over here in this hand. These two were won by the person I traded with. The Charizard was won by Logic, and obviously Logic probably wanted that card more, so he kept bidding. And then also, you know, probably just had more cash on hand than the guy I traded with, which is why, you know, Logic won that card. But I find it amazing that these two cards sort of are related to Logic's card in a weird way. They come from the same auction lot, so it's really dope. And if anyone wants to check it out, you can actually go on the website and check out the images that they loaded up, and you'll see the matching certification numbers. So it's really cool to kind of trace the lineage through. I am really, of course, happy that these are in my collection. Again, the idea was you know, originally to have some kind of exposure to WotC as time went on. Now that I'm looking at them on camera, I'm literally in love with them and will probably develop a very strong bond and attachment to them. But in the grand scheme of things, these are two beautiful, beautiful cards. And I'm sure, you know, whether they stay in my collection or whether I sell them off in order to create a little bit of extra oomph for myself, you know, I'm sure there's going to be tons of options available to me, because those are some really heavy hitter cards. I would have already flashed the prices on screen in post-ed, but they're very valuable and they are very blue chip. These are some of the OG cards that people from their, you know, childhood remember, and that level of nostalgia drives prices. So yeah, that's everything that I got from the auction. Now we'll just switch back over and we'll get this video wrapped up.
All right, friends. Well, that's everything that I got, so that's probably the most important component here. Now, here's the other interesting thing. In other scenarios, this is where the video would end, because I really don't have anything else to share with you or tell you aside from, you know, I traded some stuff. But here's what's interesting. A couple weeks later, I get hit up by my friend and he says, dude, I'm opening these packs. I don't care anymore. And my heart dropped for a variety of reasons. I was sure about the authenticity, but you know, there's always a chance that there might not be a holo in there, right? It might have just been one of those packs. And I was genuinely concerned because, you know, I want these things to be on video. I want these things to be traceable and validatable. And, you know, it's always concerning when someone says they're just going to rip, you know, an estimated $75,000 in product and, you know, YOLO. I just couldn't do it. Like I said, some of you guys are built different. It's not me though. But what's really cool is that these are the cards that were pulled from the 3 packs. Now, I actually have video as well, and it's really cool to kind of watch this stuff get opened up. I was kind of shook because I thought this would end up on social media, but I did ask my friend, and he said it was totally fine to show this in the video. So obviously you can see that a Nidoking, a Mewtwo, and a Venusaur, all holographic, were pulled from the packs. So it's really, really, really dope to see the back end of this as well. Now, let's go ahead and do some thinking out loud super briefly regarding the value of those cards. And for the sake of simplicity, I'm not going to consider any of the other cards in the packs. Realistically, what could happen is if I grade a combination of the holographic cards as well as the individual cards, meaning things like the Squirtles, the Charmanders, the Pikachus, in theory, I could probably turn a profit, right? I could probably have taken my basis for these cards and then added to it by grading. Bear in mind, I also then have to take into consideration the grading fees, which are going to be stupid high given that these are vintage cards, and then the current waiting times, which again could also be a really big pain in the neck if I wanted to have any of this stuff ready to go and ready for sale in a little bit of time. Now, I personally think that's what my friend is going to do. He's probably going to get these holographics graded, and then he's also going to get some of the other pulls graded, probably trying to maximize profit. And at the end of the day, he'll probably walk away with a couple bucks for his effort. I personally didn't want to expose myself to that much risk. As we all know, there is a certain amount of risk involved with grading cards with PSA, especially, you might not get the grade that you want, and when the grade is the primary driver for the value of the card, it can be really hard to take a hit like that, because if they come back and say it's a PSA 9, you're kind of dead in your boots. So, that Nidoking, the last sale price that I was able to find was for $10,100. The SMR value from PSA is $13,000. That Mewtwo is one of the big hitters. It was last sold for $20,100 and has an SMR value of $22,500. Finally but not least, the Venusaur, as a PSA 10, has a value of $20,600 and has a SMR value of $22,000. So, tons to say here. If you add up the PSA 10 prices, like the last sold prices, the total is $50,800. If you add up the SMR values, which again are PSA Sports Market Report estimate value, it's $57,500. Now, I had a basis, and I purchased these packs for $65,000. So, if we're looking at just the holographics and assuming they graded PSA 10s and not even factoring in the costs of grading, it looks like I theoretically would have lost about $14,200 had I opened these packs. And again, that's just assuming that I'm grading the PSA, that I'm having graded by PSA the holographic cards. Mind you, that number doesn't even factor in the costs of shipping, insurance, and grading, which by the way will add to my overall loss because I will need to pay that money in order to get there. And then if I wanted to grade other cards, I could theoretically lower my losses, but I would also have to increase my costs. And standard practice dictates that if you want to avoid losses, the best way of doing so is by cutting costs, not increasing revenue. Because if you increase the amount of things you're trying to sell, I also have to pay to get those things graded anyway. So, where does that leave me? Well, as you saw, I have a pretty decent set of stuff on the back end. I truly think that the Shadowless packs are going to get graded. They are going to grade 10s. And when they do, I'll have a really nice collection on my hand. More importantly, as I mentioned in the other part of the video, they'll probably sell for $10,000 plus, which is really nice. I do think that the market value on those is increasing and the amount of people who want those is increasing. So that's going to be a good thing for me. The other thing to bear in mind is that I technically forfeited one of my holos, but I got 2 holos as guaranteed PSA 10s. So I got the Blastoise and the Venusaur. Those are going to be dope. The Venusaur no rarity, well, it's questionable, but I think in the grand scheme of things, it is kind of going to be nice because it's a unique piece, to say the least, and more importantly, I can always use it once it appreciates a little bit in value to generate some additional income, have some extra funds hanging around just in case something cool comes up. But with all that said, friends, thanks again for checking out another video. I do hope you enjoyed today's video. Definitely a little different, a little interesting, and really stressful, but in the grand scheme of things, it was a really cool story, and I hope you all got a chance to check the video out in its entirety and enjoyed today's content, because it's definitely a story that I really wanted to share with you all. I just haven't had the time. Obviously, last week I was super busy, and so this weekend I finally had enough bandwidth to get out here and, make this video and really kind of make it pop. So I hope you enjoyed. Thanks as always for your viewership. You could have been anywhere on the internet, but you chose to hang out with me, and that means the world. Other than that, friends, if you haven't already, feel free to subscribe. This week, we had, obviously, this video today. And then, in addition to that, I'm going to do a Battle Styles opening on Thursday. And then, who even knows what we're going to do on Saturday? I don't know. I'll figure it out during the week, though. So rest assured, you'll have content. But, other than that, as always, thank you for your time. I appreciate your viewership. And we'll talk soon. Peace.